Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Bolinsky. I'm the Chief Technology Architect here at InterSystems, and today we're going to be talking about the monitoring capabilities as part of InterSystems Iris, which also includes Iris for Health, HealthShare Health Connect, and also the HealthShare Unified Care Record. So there's various tools that have been available over the years through Cache, now Iris, um, and they accomplish different goals, and honestly, with varying levels of success. But today I'm happy to discuss a new capability that's been in the product for maybe a couple releases now, but we're really starting to gain traction with it um, to make it standards-based, allowing third-party tools to connect to it easily. If you have an investment in some enterprise monitoring capabilities, you're not left in the cold anymore when it comes to our technologies. But when it comes to monitoring, there are three general aspects we want to be talking about. It's alerting, monitoring basically what's happening currently right now at this point in time on your system. And then there's also capacity planning or capacity forecasting. So today, as I mentioned, there's numerous options. There's the beloved system performance, or AKA P buttons, which if anyone has worked with me in the past, you know I love looking at P buttons and system performance files. There's the history monitor, so on and so forth. But in this session, I want to focus on using API standards and leverage many of the options available in open source. So today we're going to be talking about Prometheus, Grafana, and Alert Manager. Now, again, this is just an example of one. I just picked one. There's many other capabilities and options out there, but this just happens to be one that's popular with a lot of our customers and something we're using as well with a lot of our services. So Grafana, it's the dashboard. It creates the visualizations to help you collect the data and view it more intuitively and identify periodic anomalies or any outliers of activity. Alert Manager also takes care of alerting, obviously, but also silencing some alerts, because you certainly don't want to be getting into alert fatigue where you're getting hundreds or thousands of alerts that maybe be going to the messages.log file or the alerts.log file. You know about it, you're working on it, and you just don't want to get bombarded with the alerts. So the Alert Manager is great. But again, system performance, or AKA P buttons, still plays an important role, especially in support settings when you're engaging with InterSystems, or if there's an actual performance problem, you want us to get involved. This doesn't replace that. This is to be used in addition to. Um, so Iris, as I mentioned earlier, Iris for Health, HealthShare Health Connect, HealthShare Unified Care Record. Supports these capabilities, and it's used by pulling the exposed metrics by Iris. We're now using a standard-based REST API. It's built natively into Iris, and there's three different endpoints. The endpoints today use the Prometheus format, so there's no additional coding or data transformation that has to be done. It's all standard using Prometheus expected format. So here are the three endpoints that we expose. There's the API monitor metrics, the alerts, and then something that's new now is the interop interfaces. And we're going to be expanding on these as well. So we're going to start adding SQL statistics to it. But within the metrics thing, not only is it providing system level stats for the entire Iris instance, for example, but you have the ability to create application level metrics or sensors. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in detail in a little bit. So here's an example of how it would look. So you basically deploy what's called the monitor server here in the center. And on there, you'll have your Grafana instance, your Prometheus server, which includes the time series database that Prometheus comes natively with, and the alert manager. And then the Prometheus server calls out and actually pulls the metrics from each of the endpoints. And then there's one on the bottom right here called the node exporter. That's for something, for data or log files or something outside of Iris that you also want to collect. There's a module or attachment that you can use with Prometheus to put data into this and it will pull it along with it. The benefit there is really for being able to correlate events and metrics that you may be seeing or behavior within Iris at a certain period of time. It's great to correlate those activities to maybe something that's happening outside of Iris as well. So it's good. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. You can certainly reach out to me for more details if you want to discuss that. But today we're just going to be focusing on these three API endpoints. So back onto the monitor server here in the middle. To the left side of it, we have the Grafana, which is the Grafana client. So it connects to, you just connect to it via browser using HTTPS, and it gives you the nice graphical display of however you want to lay out your dashboard. There's no fixed dashboard that you can make it look and feel as much as you want. You don't even have to display all the metrics, and that's an important point too, because I want to touch on fatigue in a little bit, and also not making quite a big eye chart where it becomes a lot of nothing to look at. And then in the bottom left here, we have the alert manager. The alert manager, you can use email, SMS, so that way you get your timely notifications in the middle of the night. So you have true 24/7 operations and alerting capabilities, and it's all done from within a single solution. Now, when it comes to deploying this, it's widely available. It's out in GitHub. It's free. It's open source. You can install it from source. You can pre-build your containers if you want to deploy it as, maybe say 3 different sets of containers, or put it all in one. So it really is up to you in terms of how you want to manage that. Now, here's an example of what the node exporter stats would look like. So these are just the staples of things, maybe CPU, some disk stats, memory. And it's a good pain here to show, like, okay, swap is being used, how much RAM is being used. As we can see here in my example, the system is pretty much pegged at 100%, but earlier in the day it wasn't. So clearly something at around maybe 10:24 in the morning, the system went from near idle to 100% utilization, and things just got out of whack. Mostly because of, as we see here, we're looking at busy IO wait times versus actual user time, which kicks in later. So it's good to see this. Then we have the basic disk statistics, IO capabilities, and then your average latency. As we can see here, when we see the high wait IO time, we're seeing that latency is now spiking really high. Well, 30 to 40 milliseconds of latency. Now, if we expand on this, now is when we're going to start looking at, in a separate dashboard, this would be your sum of the Iris metrics. Now, you don't want to put all of them in here because, again, you don't want to be creating just this major pain of just blinking lights that and then the data gets lost. So you want to put your most common things that are important to use, CPU utilization, global references, maybe Iris disk database latency, journals, for example, and it kind of alerts, and then you can drill down on those. Now, one other important point is you can add annotations to these. So in the example here using GlowRefs, we explain what a global reference is and what it may or may not mean, how much global references are or aren't in terms of, are you doing 100,000 a second, or are you doing 10 million a second, or are you doing 80 million a second? It's all relative to your application. So it's good to have a baseline of understanding when things are good and when things are bad. And that's how you start generating your threshold-based alerting and your monitoring metrics as well. So that way you kind of know what's good and what's bad based off of, call it, standard operations versus outliers. So I touched on this earlier, the ability to create custom application metrics. And again, this is all through those same 3 APIs, which makes it really nice. So here's an example from our documentation. It's very simple. You can create and extend just this SAM abstract class and add whatever code you want to do in there. And then every time it's called, it's included, the metrics API is called, your data is included in there. Now, one thing you want to be careful with is creating the naming conventions and the naming labels, because you don't want to step on anything that we may be. So we basically just don't call anything Iris as the prefix. That way it's not stepping on any metrics we may be making. So here, as an example, we have them for our EMR. TrackCare is our EMR that we sell internationally. And here we have just an example of some of the stats we collect. So here we have the TrackCare license itself, which is separate from the Iris license. And then also here we're looking at, it scrolls on and on as an example, but here we're just looking at tasks that are important for us that we run through the task manager. So you can add anything you want to put in here. You want to put in, for example, maybe some batch reporting elapsed times, or if that's important to you, saying you have an important report that needs to run in the middle of the night before users or something comes online at 8 a.m., you need to make sure that a certain report is done before that time, and then you can track the time saying, okay, well, if it starts every day at 2 a.m., you can continue to monitor that, and you can see maybe over time it's getting progressively longer and longer and longer, up until the point where, oh, I'm knocking on the door here for 8 a.m. and it's going to be a problem. So having Prometheus and Alert Manager in place allows you to see those historical trends, which are very important. So some tips. Again, instrument your metrics that actually affect the users or service. And you'll hear me often say, performance is perception, and it's absolutely true, because there's always going to be the norm. Users will always want things faster. That's just the nature of the beast. But they're not going to care whether CPU is busy or not. That doesn't impact them. It's like, well, so what? If CPU is busy, great, but I'm getting poor response time. That's an issue. So your primary dashboard, when you log in the day, or your homepage on your Grafana, should show you the high level metrics. What are the key things that are most important to you? Because that's going to be what your users are going to be feeling and impacting. Because oftentimes you really want to know a problem before the users start calling you or to complain about, hey, there's something wrong here, something's going on. You want to be in the know, and maybe even head off something before it becomes more of a critical situation. So if, say, for example, you have an application metric in there that, say, maybe anything over 2-second response time is considered a pain point for the user. But during early mornings, maybe response time's great, it's sub-second, blah, blah, blah. But then as you're going through the morning, you're hitting 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and your response time's creeping up to 1 second, 1.5. You can then identify, well, okay, this is what's happening. Do I need to adjust resources for these time periods? And then you can adjust accordingly before you hit that pain point of the users. So along the same thought is, again, you just want to avoid the wall of graphs. I mean, if you have dozens of metrics and graphs and dials and the speedometer type things on the screen, it just becomes busy for your eyes, because you can only absorb so much information at one time. So keep them concise, keep them simple, and then drill down from there. So I'm not saying don't include every possible metric that you can. Sure, by all means do that, but you really want to be careful to put what's on important, and then drill down to those other metrics when you can. So in summary, again, this is just using Prometheus and Grafana. Again, it's leveraging our standard REST API service. It's out of the box. It's not an additional fee or cost for anything. It's built into the product. It allows you to monitor the actual Iris instance, everything about the instance at the kernel level, resource level, and now new is the interoperability production. So you can actually monitor your productions, your pull sizes, queuing, and then extending that to have your own custom application sensors or metrics added in there as well, to provide that deep insight into what's actually happening. And then you can do the historical trending, and then also provide you to forecasting for future capacity planning. So you know well in advance, saying, well, okay, I'm on this upward trend for the past 6 months. If it continues on that trend, maybe in 3 months, 4 months, a year, I'm going to need to add resources. Or if you're in cloud, okay, I need to plan maybe to add maybe more nodes to an auto scale group or something like that. So that's where the value of this comes in, is not only is the immediate point in time monitoring capability, it's also a historical trend and seeing that over periods of time where you can see behavior change. And then the alert manager, again, it's kind of part of the Prometheus package itself. It kind of comes all with it. It provides you early warning thresholds, so you can set thresholds, kind of like a warning, high priority, and then critical, based on thresholds that you might be seeing based on certain activities. So, and then you respond to them accordingly. So it might be easier to respond to something that's, we're creeping up there, we're getting into the yellow zone, we're out of the green, maybe approaching something. Alert Manager helps you before things hit the wall, and either there's an outage or response time is bad, or you're running out of resources, whatever. And the other thing is, again, I want to stress that these API services and endpoints, they're available to any monitoring tool that uses standard REST API capabilities: AWS CloudWatch, Azure Monitor, Splunk, CoreLogix, Nagios, Cacti. So you name it. As long as they support an API, a REST API service, it can be used. So here's some useful links. Apologies for them being kind of small, but I'll just go over these in summary. So under the InterSystems documentation, the first link you definitely want to look at. This is our overall monitoring guide. So in there, it covers not only all these REST endpoints, but it covers a lot of the other tools too, and maybe some of the other tools you haven't used in the past or heard of in the past, such as Trace or Perf Sample, Perfmon. They all have specific use cases, so be careful using them. Some of them may have a performance impact, such as Perfmon or MonLBL. So you want to run those in very short durations. But that first page goes in detail. Then the next three go into each of the specific ones. So there's just the metrics, REST API, which is the system level stats, and also where your application sensors would be added. Then there's also the third one, the interoperability endpoint, where it provides you all the details about your production. Then we followed with the documentation, the Prometheus documentation. So there's the first steps, kind of how to install it, kind of what's it about, blah, blah, blah. The alert manager. And then I provided two other examples here. One is using CloudWatch from AWS, integrating with Iris. And then our friend Dimitri showing how Grafana has direct data source from Grafana rather than using Prometheus as the middleman. He has put out here an example of how to do it directly from Grafana. So there's a lot of strong support on the community for this. I'm sure it will continue to grow over time. But with that, I want to thank you. Certainly feel free to reach out on me, email or in the community. I'm always available and would love to hear any questions or problems you might arise. Thank you.